On an old document, someone wrote 2 words beside a date, 1865, free. Below it, a second hand scrawled a number, 40 million slaves. This represents the volume of souls whose lives were legally reduced to a cold statistic. Slavery operated as an institution of total erasure. Most arrivals were not celebrated in Bibles or recorded in courthouses. They were simply entered as new inventory in a plantation ledger. Out of this anonymous void, names began to emerge. Annie Simmons was born into bondage in the spring of 1856. Her childhood was spent in the shadow of the big house and the fields, defined by the whip and the looming Civil War. Annie lived to be 83 years old, outliving the institution of slavery by 74 years. Her survival ensured that her children and grandchildren would never appear on an auction block. When freedom arrived in 1865, Annie was 9. She began her life as a free woman amidst the literal ruins of the Old World. She was joined by Owen L. Simmons. Born in 1857, he was 7 when the news arrived he was no longer someone's property. This generation occupied a unique position in the lineage. They were old enough to remember the trauma of their stolen childhoods, but young enough to build the foundations of a free life. Owen and Annie spent the next 4 decades working, marrying, and raising a generation of Simmons men and women who were born entirely free. Following 1865, they established a lineage of citizens, transforming their names from ledger entries into a permanent part of the American record. The second generation, siblings like Owens Jr., Callista, and Susie, were the first to be born free. They came of age in an era defined by black codes and the rise of segregation. Despite the hostility of that era, several members of this generation achieved remarkable longevity. Robert Haljack Simmons lived to be 92 years old. Born in 1892, his life spanned from the late 19th century through the Civil Rights Movement into the dawn of the Reagan era. This timeline illustrates the era's severe risks. Infants like Ida died at 1 and Clara at 3, highlighting high mortality rates during Reconstruction. The surviving branches carried the weight of these losses, moving forward to ensure the family's survival. Every child who survived to adulthood during this period represented a biological victory over a system that still sought to marginalize them. Jessie Corrine Simmons was born in 1894. She married Edward Daids, and together they acted as the bridge into the 20th century. They raised 10 children, the 4th generation, who entered a world of global conflict and rapid social change. During the 1920s, the family navigated the cultural shifts of the Harlem Renaissance, establishing themselves as a vast American lineage. They remained a cohesive unit through the Great Depression, surviving the most severe economic hardship in the nation's history. These 10 siblings produced the network of descendants that eventually populated the Spady, Curry, Street, and Flournoy branches. Even as they buried children, like 10-year-old Trammer, the sheer number of descendants ensured the family's presence in the historical record was now permanent. By the mid-20th century, descendants like William Henry Simmons saw the dreams of their parents take shape as they witnessed the signature of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Annette Daids branch eventually produced her grandson, Kaiim Daids, who began the process of recording the names and dates of every ancestor. This map tracks the family's expansion through the century. The Flournoy branch alone accounts for a dense network of descendants. Documenting these births, stretching to 1991, provides physical evidence of their survival across 135 years. Compiling these records is a deliberate act of resistance, replacing the forced anonymity of the past with a detailed written history. We began with 40 million unnamed souls. Against that silence, we now have the fully documented Simmons and Daids lineage. This is the Legacy Covenant, a promise that those who survived the chains will be remembered by those who walk in freedom. From Annie Simmons in 1856 to the final name recorded in 1991, this journey stands as proof of life and victory over erasure. Preserving the records of one's ancestors is the most direct way to honor the freedom they worked to secure. A recorded lineage is the final triumph over the void. This is your legacy. Guard it.